At this time, I will call the December 16th, 2024 County Council meeting to order. First item of business is invocation and pledge of allegiance. I will recognize the Honorable Allison Love from District 2.
Dear Lord, we ask for your guidance and protection as we gather to celebrate the holidays. Help us to remember the true meaning of the season and to spread love and kindness to those around us. We pray for those in need and ask that you shine a light on them and guide them toward hope and faith in you. May you hear and answer the sounds of silence throughout our great nation. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everyone here tonight. Are our mics working? I can't tell. They are? Okay. I want to welcome everyone here who came out to the council meeting tonight. We do have, as our next item of business, oath of office. There are no individuals who are here for oath of office. The one appearance that we do have is that it is a tradition of council to recognize outgoing council members when they leave the council. Ms. Love has requested that we allow our longest-serving council member, Mr. Bumperati, to lead us off in this. I do want to say this, though. We typically have a plaque that goes to every council member, and because it took us so long to get a picture together, we don't have the plaque tonight, but we do have something different to share. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Roddy.
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to be able to be asked to share a few great, kind words about my good friend. I remember when Allison would come and stand before us, and she would let us have it, and she would fight for her community, fight for, at the time, her neighbors and friends. And now she's been on the other side. She's still fighting for her community, her neighbors, and her friends. And it's been such an honor to see how she went from that side of the podium to this side and has continued to grow and gotten closer to her community, gotten closer to the staff that runs this county, gotten closer to different council members. And I'll say this on a personal note. I've been on this council, I've seen it turn over many times, I've seen staff turn over many times, and I have yet to spend more time with anybody on staff or on council more than I've spent with her over the last several years that she's been on council. She's been not just a colleague, she's been a friend, she's been an advocate for everything she believed in and things that people didn't believe she can get done, she's gotten it done. I've visited the Lake Wiley community several times looking at things to help her pull them together. I even got a Lake Wiley t-shirt. So it goes beyond this desk, and what we do for this county is what we do for each other, how we've grown. And I'm sure she's had outside relationships with other members of council, but I think the one that she and I shared over the years has grown tremendously. I can call on her, she can call on me, and we've just become friends, you know, and it's easier to do this job when you somewhat are friends. Sometimes you tell your friends yes, sometimes you tell your friends no, and we've had our yes moments and we've had our no moments, and we've been able to grow through that, and that makes a good friendship and a good relationship and a good partnership for us to fight for the people that sit on this side of the podium as well as on that side. So she's going to be missed up here, but I'm sure she's going to find her way back over there when we're not doing something that she thinks we need to be doing or we're not doing it right. She's been a true advocate for York County, not just Lake Wiley, not just the Clover area, not just the people that she represents. She's been a true champion for all of us, whether we're in Rock Hill, whether we're in York. And we've all had our differences with different council members, but some way, somehow, we've all been able to rein it back in together. And I think she's helped foster some of these relationships, even with a different council up here. But she's going to be missed. Like Chrissy said, we didn't get the plaque, but we got the Allison Love Way. And it's funny that it didn't say street, it says way, so she got it her way a lot up here with a lot of different things that she's fought for. So this is very fitting to say Allison Love Way. So we're going to be, you're not going to be missed because we know you're going to be up here, but we're going to be thinking about you, and I'm sure you're going to be thinking about us. So I'm going to miss you.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
is awesome.
I can't think of anything that would sum it up better. Oh, my gosh, that's awesome. Oh, Allison Love.
Want to get a picture or a picture?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, let's do it.
That's
Get a
awesome.
council picture.
I love it.
We're gonna hold this up in the picture. Oh.
That's my cue, huh?
Yes, sir.
I can get closer this time, it's great. You ready?
Tom, turn the flash on.
Oops. Oh, I'm sorry. I started moving. I didn't see that other one. I certainly will turn over the floor to you, Ms. Love.
Okay. So, gosh, it's been the longest 8 years and the shortest 8 years, all in one. So, these are tears of joy, though. And I just want to say that when I was first elected, I felt like I was charged with, what I had promised to do. I had been coming to meetings and standing at, not that podium, but a similar podium, I think, in a much smaller building where we had, very limited seating because of, ultimately because of a fire marshal, maybe. I don't know really for sure if that was the case, but we did limit the audience, and because those meetings would go on and on sometimes. And in that time, I was sitting out there like you all are, and fighting for things that my neighbors and I felt like either didn't need to happen or could happen and could be better. We could improve on some of the things that might be happening in the Lake Wylie area. So I feel like I was charged with exactly what I felt like needed to be done, and that was to slow the growth. And at that time, when I first got on council, Britt Blackwell was our chair, and we had some differences. And I think ultimately Michael Johnson became chair, and that was a great relief to me because we represented districts that were very similar. What we were experiencing in Lake Wylie, he had experienced, so we could identify with each other, and he could see the need. So when I would say, hey, we need to do this in Lake Wylie and Clover, he felt that need. And so I owe a world of thanks to him. That's former council chair and current Senator Michael Johnson in Fort Mill. And I feel like, in the beginning, there was so much that we accomplished because we understood the need. The second thing, and something that really, when I first got on council, wasn't thinking about, up until that moment, but that was the issue of blue granite water in the Lake Wylie area. We had 5,000 residents paying exorbitant prices for water, not as high as outside the town of Clover, mind you, but still just outrageous prices and the worst service. And the people in Lake Wylie who had blue granite water, they had gone to Public Service Commission meeting after Public Service Commission meeting. And I remember one night we came to a meeting here and a bunch of people spoke. I spoke at the very end of that meeting, and there was some discussion on whether or not I was even allowed to speak as the council member, but I was in the end. And we all lined our shoes up right out here across the floor as we spoke. As each person spoke, they took their shoes off and lined them up. And in the end, we said, you know what, Public Service Commissioners, we want you to put yourselves in our shoes. And it still didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen was because the state, what blue granite water was allowed to do was allowed by the state. And there was nothing that any of us could do as residents to stop their increases and how they were able to add that onto a bill without doing it long term. It could just immediately go onto a bill based on that state statute. But we made every effort. And so once I understood that, and that was the night that, after all those meetings we had attended for many years, way before I was on council, that was the first time that I understood, we've wasted our time even going to these meetings, what we didn't know. And so the county management, Michael Kendry, oh my goodness, had put hours upon hours in negotiating with a company that really didn't want to sell to us. You know, we were a thorn in their side, but they really making enough to offset the thorn in their side. So, but in the end, we stuck to it. It's not something that I made a big deal. I didn't go out and raise a flag and complain about them all the time. But in the end, we saved those 5,000 residents from the highest prices they had ever paid. We cut those rates like crazy. And then we had West Clymer step up to the plate for us also and cut them even more. We got some state money to go with the money, the $36 million that the residents of Lake Wylie paid. We also got $20 million to go toward that from the state. So I owe also a debt of gratitude to West Clymer, because you know what? When you're a council person and you have happy constituents, that means everything. You know what? That's my ultimate goal, was to be sure that the people in Lake Wylie and Clover were taken care of, and they were happy as they could possibly be. And I haven't accomplished everything or anything without those people who came here numerous times. And you're on this council, if you've been on this council for the years that I've been on this council, in those first 4.5 years, 5 years, we filled this room. We have filled the 2 overflow rooms with people who care about Lake Wylie and Clover. You know, I didn't talk much about Clover because really didn't want Clover to be on the radar. You know, the problems are in Lake Wylie, and my goal was to keep those things from spilling over into Clover, which I hold Clover pretty sacred. I'm the only council member here that's lived in every district but one. Well, I've lived in Fort Mill, but I have not lived in your side of Fort Mill. But I'm maybe one day. And so, you know, so I have a great idea of what it's like to live in all the different districts, and obviously my favorite is District 2. I've been there for 32 years in addition to time in other areas of the county. But the people are the best part of this role for me. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm putting my friend on a board, or I'm doing this for somebody that I know, and I just want you to know that those people were not my friends. They were not my acquaintances. I didn't even know them when I got on council. So the people that have stepped up on behalf of our community, those are new and cherished people for me, and they are friends now. And I continue to meet people, and I will continue to meet people as time goes on. I'm totally invested in the Clover and Lake Wylie area. And lastly, or next to lastly, I want to thank somebody who has worked with me on this council for the full 8 years that I've been on here. He did take the time to come out to Lake Wylie on multiple occasions. We had appetizers at Copper one night, and we after taking a tour, you know, we had the map, and I said, this is this road, and this is this road, and these are where the problems are, and I want to show you the problems. But we also wound up at Copper Pub at about 5 o'clock. We had 35 people waiting there for us when we got there, and Councilman Roddy said, so this is the Lake Wylie parade you talk about. And I said, this is it. And so he was able to see and feel and understand the needs of the people there. He has since been back many times. He has gotten to know people from the district, just like I've gotten to know people from the district. He's gotten to know people from the district. And I have to tell you, it makes such a difference. When I sit on this council and I know that somebody understands where I'm coming from, it makes a difference. And it's not a difference to me. It's a difference to the residents that I represent. It's a difference to the community. And it's a difference to York County in general. One of the scariest things I heard here one night was that things need to be consistent across the county. And I'm telling you, if you want to make it consistent based on the level that Fort Mill and Lake Wylie have experienced, I'm all for it. But if you want to make it consistent based on some level of impact to infrastructure in another area of this county, I'm totally against it. So thank you. You've been the biggest ally to District 2 that I could ever have asked for. And we didn't always agree, and we won't always agree, but you are and always will be my friend. And I don't know how long you're going to be council. Maybe he's going to continue on for a long, long time. I don't know. Maybe he ultimately will be mayor of Rock Hill. So maybe you ever thought about that? So, you know, but I owe a debt of gratitude to any 3 others on this council who ever voted for something that I felt like was needed in my district. So, since I've been on council, I have to tell you, if I don't have children, but when I first got on council, I had just adopted a little puppy, a pot cake from the Turks and Caicos Islands. And when I got on council, he was 10 weeks old. As a matter of fact, he attended a zoning board of appeals meeting with me before I got on council. And cutest little thing you ever saw. And 8 years later, if he were your child, you would have an 8-year-old, you'd be standing beside an 8-year-old, and you would have missed so much had you spent your time representing District 2. Now I have a little white-faced dog, and I'm pleased to, well, I'll tell you, I think he probably voted for Andy Litton because he wanted me back at home. So I do believe that. But anyway, so I'm very excited about what the future holds. I will let you also know I'm resigning from the Nation Forward Land Trust. I have a new venture that will begin and will be announced in January. And I will not be sitting in this seat on behalf of the people of District 2 in York County. However, I will be standing with you again and for as long as I'm here. So thank y'all all very much for the time, the effort, the energy. And I know some of you are excited and you know, we're going to have a new person here in this seat and you're excited about that. But I just want you to know I'm also excited about that. So thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Love, and I will say, until you sit in these seats, you can't describe what it is like to serve in this role, to take that responsibility on, to feel that weight on your shoulders of what is the right thing to do and how do you deal with the different problems that come in front of us. I know on behalf of the county, I want to thank Allison for her 8 years of service to the county. She's very, very talented when it comes to communications, especially marketing. And I don't think anyone can question the passion that she brings to the job that she served in. I know that over these past few years, it has been extremely busy. We have had so many things that have gone on, not just Blue Granite, but we've had the development of a parks department. That we already had one, but we didn't actually have a department to move forward with. That's something that's been accomplished. We've had more preservation in this history than we've had in a while. We've updated our code, which we've got to still work through the kinks on that. We've gone through redistricting. We've had another pennies program come across. There's just so many things that come at you, and then you throw onto that individual community residents issues that pop up. And so, you know, you never can please 100% of people 100% of the time. And that's difficult, especially when you're trying your best to do what you can for the community. But we do wish you well, Ms. Love, and we appreciate your service on behalf of the county in serving our community. Other comments before we?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Allison, it's been an honor serving up here with you. I tell you what, it's been, I can't believe that time just ticks by. It's been 4 years. Allison got to hear every story that my daughters are going through, and, you know, we'll continue to keep you updated as that happens.
Yep.
You know, the first time I went out there, I saw the park, what you put out there, and the work you've done under land preservation, it was second to none. So, you know, you've left a destiny, or a mark on the community with the ability to preserve land, and I think that, again, we don't make any more land. So what you've done is you've really protected a real beautiful spots.
Take care of it for me, Tom.
That's right, that's right. So thank you, Allison, it's been an honor.
Any other comments? All right. We move now to our public forum session. We've only had one individual sign up. This is an opportunity for council to hear from individuals in the community. We don't engage in questions or answers. We simply take the opportunity to listen. And so when I call your name, if you'd please come up and make sure to give your name and address before you start speaking. And if you'll kindly, our 2-minute warning is not working tonight, so I'm gonna watch our clerk, and when that time comes up, hopefully the comments will have been completed before then, so I don't have to do that. But Brandon Langford.
Good evening. Hey, my name is Brandon Langford, and my address is 550 South Portman Lane, Fort Mill. I wish to speak regarding the ongoing Silfab solar issue. This is by far the most divisive and contentious community issue I've ever experienced as a Fort Mill resident. I've closely followed this issue, and not only as a concerned citizen, but as a concerned parent. From my perspective, it's evident that the Fort Mill community has adamantly opposed this development for one very simple and clear reason. The proposed use is prohibited in a light industrial zone per York County Code and per the May 9th BZA unanimous decision. The facts are abundantly clear that Silfab intends to manufacture solar cells using toxic and explosive chemicals. The proposed use not only directly ignores current York County laws, but also violates the very basic principles of responsible land planning. Zoning laws exist to proactively protect the community and ensure the common good by preventing the incompatible uses, protecting residential areas, maintaining property values, promoting responsible growth, and protecting the environment. Silfab Solar's proposed use does not comply with any of these zoning tenets. It's clearly heavy industrial manufacturing and needs to be directed to a location that is appropriately zoned heavy industrial, period. York County has attempted to use the excuse that a previously issued zoning verification letter gave Silfab the, quote, legal right to develop the property for its industrial use, end quote. I ask this council, how is it possible to issue a document that provides a company the legal right to develop an unlawful use in that location?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Just for purposes of clarification, this matter is in litigation as before the courts. Do we have a motion on consent? Oh, I'm sorry. All the way at the bottom, Carla Pendleton.
I'm Carla Pendleton, 5930 Charlotte Highway, Lake Wiley. I'm here tonight for a couple of reasons. One is to thank the council belatedly for amending the Lake Wiley zoning overlay ordinance to allow for more diversity of businesses within proximity to similar businesses in the Lake Wiley area, and I thank y'all for that. The other is to summarize a situation that I'm concerned about regarding permitting a commission to have a sitting board member who is also on the boards of several registered limited liability corporations in a related field. The potential for those LLCs to compete with the land conservation efforts of York County Forever, and the potential for an LLC board member also on a county commission to influence that commission to make decisions that could benefit their LLCs. When those LLCs are related to land conservation, is it fair to property owners who may come before that commission for the LLC board member to make decisions on that commission regarding land use? Self-serving board and commission appointments also bring into question the timing of recent appointments when there hasn't previously been any hurry to fill seats that have been vacant for months. It just looks improper. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes our public forum session. Do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing nothing, consent agenda is approved. We do not have any items in old business. Actually, I'm sorry, we do have public hearings. We have two public hearings. First public hearing, council to conduct a public hearing and provide third reading of an ordinance to amend the existing agreement governing the York-Chester Industrial Park in order to add parcels within the geographical boundaries of York County to the multi-county industrial park, to adjust and/or remove any parcels as may be necessary, to provide and/or remove corresponding tax map numbers, company names, or property owners associated with the added and adjusted removed parcels, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Is there anything from management before we open public hearing? Okay. Is there anyone?
One thing from our office, Madam Chair, just two Scrivener's errors corrected in the execution copy of no consequence to the ordinance itself, but I wanted to point it out for the record. There was a footnote designating December 18th as the date for an effective date. It was changed to December 16th for purposes of execution. There was a reference in the text of the ordinance referring to parcels added in 2024. That was changed to reflect 2023. That was changed to reflect 2024, which is the actual purpose of this amendment before council.
Yes, sir. For purposes of the motion that may come after this, does that have to be noted, or is this sufficient?
No, I just
what
want
you
on the
got
record.
acknowledged?
Those are Scrivener's errors that were corrected in advance of execution.
Thank you, sir. Hearing nothing else from management, is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing closes unanimously. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Moving now to item number 2 of the public hearing section of our agenda. Council to conduct a public hearing and provide third reading of an ordinance authorizing the first amendment of that certain fee agreement by and between York County, South Carolina Performance Friction Corporation and PFC Realty Limited Partnership relating to, without limitation, number 1, updating the investment requirement of the project and extending, number 2, extending the investment period of the project and other related matters. Is there anything from management before we open public hearing? All right. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close public hearing. Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We do not have any old business tonight. Our first item of new business is under number 1, council to discuss potential zoning code text amendment related to self-storage facilities. Is there anything from staff?
Yes, this is just a reminder. We're coming back as we were last here November 18th, and we presented a memo that talked about 3 big issues that came out of the Planning and Zoning Committee. That memo was attached to this agenda item as reference, but one of the topics, one of the 3, was self-storage. So we're beginning to do follow-up work. Self-storage, when you all last discussed it in November, Councilmember Huckabee had a couple questions. I know our planning director, Jonathan Buono, spent some time answering those questions, and we thought it was an appropriate time to come back and make sure you all finish this discussion so we can continue to work on the other items. But we wanted to give you all one more chance to have that conversation and see if there's any other questions.
Any discussion from council?
Anybody want to share anything? I have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know, I'm not sure what we're looking to change, because at the committee meeting, I thought we did pretty good of coming up with some ideas on how to address this, so I'm looking forward to getting this resolved.
Yeah,
I don't know what we're changing.
So on the table,
Yeah.
right, in the memo, we had a variety of options for you all to consider. I know Councilmember Huckabee had some questions. I think there is an option just to keep it the way it is on the table, or there's other options listed in the memo we could discuss. But in terms of the conversation, it seemed like y'all were real close to finalizing a recommendation, and we wanted to give you all time to discuss that tonight.
Yeah. All right, I'll share some thoughts. Go ahead. I'll try to do that quickly. So this came up as when Allison pulled storage buildings out of the 660. This is when this came up. And my original thought was, after talking to some people in the community, that it made sense to put some distance between main roads and frontage roads to where storage facilities exist. I've learned since then that there are primarily 2 types of storage buildings. There are internal access and external access. And the external access buildings, ironically, since 2021, we have not, York County hasn't approved any external access self-storage buildings, only internal access. We've approved 3 since the beginning of 2021. So the external access buildings, I think, are less relevant now than internal. The nicer aesthetically appealing buildings, those are more prevalent because we've had 3 of those approved since 2021. So when I think about this issue, as I ride around the county, and some of you may or may not agree with what I'm about to say, is that we're beginning to see, in the rural part of the county, you're beginning to see 3, I would say businesses, but you see a volunteer fire department, you see a Dollar General, and you see self-storage built first in an area where growth is heading, right? So that's my opinion. So my concern's this, and it kind of goes back to my original concern about not necessarily seeing self-storage buildings,
which again, there's language in our ordinance that says external access buildings, there's language in the ordinance that says you're not supposed to see those. So then you go back to the internal access buildings. I would venture to say if anybody in the room was going to need a storage building, you'd probably go online and Google. I did it today. Storage buildings, self-storage facilities near me. I Googled it, and there they popped up. So then I would probably call and check pricing. Do I want controlled or non-controlled, temperature controlled? What am I looking for? What am I willing to pay? And I'm probably going to make a decision that way. I'm not going to go right around the county looking for a building. So this leads to my last point, and I like the first option to keep it the same, but as I said, as you ride around the county now, you see the self-storage buildings out there, and it's kind of the only thing out there. And so I think ahead, 10 years from now, and would we have wished that that not be a business that's out on a main road, because it's not necessarily an essential business. It definitely has a demand, right? It wouldn't be built if there wasn't a demand to fill these buildings. But I question whether they still need to be out on primary and secondary roads, frontage roads, primary roads, secondary roads. So maybe there's something that planning can do to address that if council agrees. Otherwise, I'm good leaving the ordinance as it stands, which I think was option one.
So, Allison, are you also?
No.
Okay. So the only, my recommendation on this is, one of the concerns I have is I think that we're more, in essence, needing outside storage, and let me explain. You know, you've got a lot of developments now that don't allow campers and boats, okay? They don't.
I don't think this applies. I think that's a separate, let me,
If we'll just
Jonathan, is that a
let each
separate
person
category?
let them have their comments, and then we can,
Yeah.
if you want to address
Yeah,
the
we can-
questions
we-
to staff.
I just
Oh,
think
we
do
can
that.
talk, yeah. So, and again, you know, as I look at what's currently on the books right now, I still do have some questions. So I don't, you know, I still have questions on how I would like to approach this thing. Possibly just keep it as is, but again, I'm still having some concerns about or needs for what we have for storage. But again, I think that when it comes to outside storage, I think, again, if this may not include or be part of it, that's fine, and we can add this for another conversation. But I think, to me, one of the biggest needs out there is you have these new developments going in. They do not allow storage of boats and campers unless they have an area that's deemed for it on their development itself. So I think if we were going to look to do modifications, and again, it may not be from within this one here, but I think we need to look at the opportunity for outside storage for boats and campers. And again, I think that would be my request out of this storage conversation. So,
Ms. Love?
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the outside boat and RV storage is a separate category, isn't it, Jonathan? However, you know, my original, the reason this originally came up was not really based on where they were located, but on how many there are. So even when you start, and I do think they should be considered together, because, and I do think they should be considered, the location should be considered, because we've got way too many in some cases, but they do take up the space, that front row, they take up that front row spot. But I think we should consider not only I think y'all should consider not only the storage units that are all enclosed, the ones that are not all enclosed, that you just drive up to your individual spot and, you know, take stuff or put stuff in. But I also think that the outdoor storage should be considered in the same way, because they also are taking up front row seating at the same time. So what I would like to see y'all do is consider storage, indoor, outdoor storage, and boat and RV storage as a category, as two categories, but as one, and probably limit that to some of those main roads. And that would be my suggestion, since we're not going to limit the quantity of things going forward, where they go and how they look. Or, you know, in Lake Wylie, for example, we have a new one coming, and so I've reached out to the people in Lake Wylie who have those outdoor facilities, and ask that they put boats along the front, because I think if we are a lake community and we want to look like a lake community, we would rather ride by and see boats instead of RVs or campers. So that's just a little thing, but, that was just me individually asking and just trying to keep it within the theme, but not disallow campers. So I just think there's more to consider, like Councilman Audette says, that is also it's a need. And in some cases, a lot of the neighborhoods are putting in boat and RV storage, and they're backing those up to neighborhoods that don't want to be adjoining boat and RV storage. There's a great example of that down Concord Road where, they've put in their neighborhood boat and RV storage, but it backs up to another neighborhood that, Hands Mill, that backs up to another neighborhood that really doesn't want to overlook a boat and RV storage area. They'd rather overlook somebody's backyards, so. Anyway, I just think there's more to consider there.
Anyone else?
So,
Any other council?
I agree. I mean, I think those are good points, and we can, before we take a final vote, go back and look at that again. What do you think?
Anybody else from council have some comments before we ask some questions of management?
I know a lot of the inside storage places are pretty immaculate places, which I could understand not having them up on prime road property. But if we are going to go back on, I'd like to even dive into a lot of the developers, if they're going to develop these communities, have some adequate storage built into their plans also.
So I think I'll just add, unless the other council member has any questions, this was put on the agenda as a discussion point. And the way that it was put on the agenda was because of the way that it was sent to us. It was part of a specific ordinance that was only related to a very specific area of the county. And I think that there's probably some good intention with that, but then it resulted in some unintended consequences. I have to agree. I mean, to me, one of the biggest goals we have is to simplify our code. As I looked at other jurisdictions and how they deal with storage, they deal with storage collectively. They try to look at it collectively and not just take mini storage out of the question of outdoor storage versus what do our businesses need. The way my mind thinks, I'm going to go ahead and read this out because I made some comments, but to me, I think we've got a lot of things that go into this. And with respect to analyzing it, my hope is that we dig deeper, that we actually look at countywide policy that accomplishes what we want it to do, and go back and check and see if it does that. We have municipalities, and then we have folks who are right across the border from us who have passed ordinances that seem to push these types of uses to us. I think that we need to take a look at that, and that we need to look at the policy directives here. So if we allow that to happen, it creates sprawl and increases traffic to areas that don't even use those services. Usually the higher densities and the municipalities are the ones that require that type of use. But we certainly should, when we look at the boat and RV storage, a lot of the, at least boat use, is going to be nearer to the areas where they want to use them. I thought Mr. Roddy actually made a good point at one of our committee meetings that was directed at that. We need to take a look at it more comprehensively and not just in isolation. My hope is that we also work with our municipalities to reach the countywide solutions. We need to figure out, are we going to be able to align these comp plans? And I mean, that's difficult, but we're running out of land. So if we can come together on it, I think that's very difficult, but it's key. Some other questions that I have is what's the policy reason for not allowing the storage in ID? So when you look at the storage issue a little bit more broadly, we have to look at external. We just ran into an issue where a farmer wasn't allowed to use some of these storage. We've got to learn how to treat those areas a little bit differently than others, and how do we allow them to continue to do that without lumping them into the same boat as others. We also do not have any ability in the county right now to do outdoor storage at all as a primary use. It has to be connected, but what about a business that needs that use that's connected to it? If those folks can work together, I think it can accomplish the goal that we need to look at. And I'll be honest, that we just recently had a property owner come before us. They've served our community for decades in ID, in industrial, and they were required to go and basically split their parcel in half and change the zoning. So now we have a split parcel zoning, just so they could use half of their parcel to do some of the outdoor storage. That's really not accomplishing what we want, because the larger ID parcels are the ones that are more marketable long-term. Those are the ones that help us to attract businesses that are more quality businesses, and I think there probably should have been a lot more flexibility and ability to address that and to require them to do that, because now we've just split the property in half and made it difficult. So I think that this is an issue that what I'm hearing from council is this is something that can be brought up again through our simplification of the code, but I don't think that there's any specific effort to address this issue in isolation without having that comprehensive review. I mean, if there's any other council that feels differently, I'd like for you to speak up now, and certainly, Josh, if you've got some comments on what you've heard from council tonight, let me know.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Yeah. So, and again, to me, again, the outside storage is a problem. I've heard it from several people, throughout York. And I think that we need to come up with some type of comprehensive plan around that and make it more ability for landowners, et cetera, that are looking to do this, more flexibility, and especially existing businesses to have some flexibility here. So I'd like to bring this on for further discussion and maybe to defer a decision on this, if we can have some additional discussion around.
Right. I think what I would recommend listening to y'all is that we come up with a new charge, potentially, county council, to the planning and zoning committee. I think what I heard was a broader conversation where this was more specific. And my understanding was we were to bring back recommendations for this specific ask. So if there's a broader conversation y'all want to happen, staff's willing to do that, but we want to make sure we understand the charge. And so that would be my recommendation. What I heard y'all say tonight is you're okay keeping it the way it is right now on the more specific ask, but there's bigger, deeper questions you have about this. That's how I heard it. I wanted to repeat it in case I heard it wrong.
I agree with the only exception being, I do think that mini storage, what we're trying to do is not be the landing place for what other areas need, given their density. I mean, and I think that there is some room for us to fix that when in the context of mini storage. What I'm hearing council say, though, is that as part of our strategic goal, which is to simplify the code, this should be looked at more comprehensively, not pick one thing, because we've got several issues that have popped up that need to be fixed rather quickly, too. I'm not sure where we've left off with the AGC and what we need to fix to make that happen. Storage is broader.
Yeah, and I think it should be mixed. I mean, if somebody wants 50% indoor, 50% outdoor, then we need to have that conversation. I think that we miss out. We miss the boat because of the needs of the community, I think, because we're hamstringing them sometimes with our way we structured this ordinance. Yeah.
I have a quick question for John, for staff. Is there anything in our codes that would allow, let's say if someone came in and did whether it's apartment complex or subdivision, that would allow them to have storage on site for their residents, whether it's single-family homes, then some area has storage in an apartment area, they can offer some storage? Because would we allow that, or have we ever entertained, does our code have any flexibility to allow it?
Yeah, what you're describing would be an accessory use, so that's more common in an apartment complex and a large one at that, where they might have some on-site either garages or true storage units, or people might simply rent a garage to put storage in there. So yeah, that would be accessory to the principal use of the apartment. So you wouldn't have people coming off-site.
Right, it would be for their
It would be for the
tenants.
residents only. Yep, that would be allowed.
I think what Mr. Roddy's asking, and I think what council's asking, is to dig a little deeper. I mean, what are these, he's still talking about mini storage, and what's the use with that? Where are these mini storage facilities getting their their base? Is it from residents that live within a certain mile? I mean, to me, if we're going to get into this, which I think council, I mean, it's a slippery slope. How far do you get into this stuff? But I do think we need to look at it. We need to look at the ordinance and see who's it serving. Is it serving people outside of our county or people in our county? Is there a certain number of folks that need to use that? I mean, I think we need to dig a little deeper and make sure that we aren't the landing place for some of the municipalities seem to have barred them. And so the question is, are they just pushing them out into the rural areas? That's not something that I think we need to do. But I think to your point, the question is, who are those folks actually using them? Who's using them? And my understanding is that take too many to be using the mini storages to still make them profitable. So, I mean, that's part of the analysis that I think has been missing.
So as you read through the ordinance, when you mention mini storage, I don't know if you're talking about external entry mini storage, but our ordinance doesn't really allow that to be in sight if you read through the ordinance. So that's why I was saying since 2021, York County's only approved 3 internal entry buildings. So my greatest concern is that these buildings are getting built in areas that aren't developed yet. And as time passes, we're probably going to look back and say, gosh, I wish we'd pushed them off on a back piece of this property so that we could have left the front piece for something more essential. That's my greatest concern.
You're saying that the county's only approved 3 of the big box?
That's correct, since 2021.
Well, I know of 2 of them that they approved that were not pushed out into the county. They're
Yeah,
in Lake
yeah.
Wiley.
That's
They're
what
on
I'm
Highway
saying.
49.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think we ought to consider what we wish we had done 10 years from now when an area begins to develop and you've got an appealing, like Tommy said, internal self-storage building, but you probably would have preferred it not be there, that something else be there.
Yeah.
And
agree on
I don't disagree with what you're saying, and Tommy said it. I said it earlier, 6-8 months ago, and that is, should we be encouraging these developments, residential developments, to have storage on the property? If not, mandate it. So that you avoid some of the storage facilities
I think
that
a
are
lot
built
of,
by
a lot of them
demand.
in my area do, so that's,
Yeah.
I think some of the developers, they probably see the need for that at this point, so.
Yeah, you're seeing more and more of that. They're building garages to store things in.
No, they have chain link fenced areas for boats and RVs.
But that's
In the
not a
neighborhood.
part of this discussion. I hear you want to attach it to the discussion, but that's not a part of this discussion tonight. Self-storage doesn't involve RV and boat storage.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing council say is we want to look at it holistically
Right.
and not just piecemeal. And the
Yes.
mini storage issue, taking it out of, looking at it in isolation, maybe that wasn't the best approach for us to look at.
Yeah.
So I do think it's part of our strategic plan to take a look at that. Let's just look at it more holistically. Are there any, we don't have any action item to consider, so it was more of a discussion. All right, we move now to item number 2 in new business. Council to approve the procurement of laptop computers to Dell Marketing of Round Rock, Texas, for a total cost not to exceed $144,202.87 for MDTs for fire services as part of the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to item number 3, council to approve the purchase of pure storage for use by the Solicitor's Office from DNS for a total cost of $244,697.83 as provisioned by York County's Procurement Code in Section 35.010 D1W as part of the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program.
Motion to approve.
Second, sir.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 4, council to adopt a resolution committing York County to enter into a fee in lieu of tax incentive agreement with one or more companies presently identified collectively under the code name Project Quicksilver, which includes certain credits against fee in lieu of tax payments for certain investments in infrastructure and other matters related thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? purposes of clarification, I do want to say this is a resolution at this point. My understanding is that this is being offered and is a reduced fee in lieu offering in order to accomplish the goals that we've talked about previously, which is to incentivize manufacturing and higher skilled jobs over warehouse and distribution. That is the reason why this was approved and is consistent with our consistent plan, which is not to incentivize those. If I've said anything wrong on that, I'd like for staff or anyone from management to correct me on that, but that's my understanding is that's the reason why this is being proposed.
Yeah, you'll see if ELO follow this, but this is one thing that the company had brought up that they wanted. And
I just want to make sure that what I said was accurate as an understanding, because once we pass the resolution, that's kind of puts you in
exactly,
in that
and
position.
staff's here to answer any questions y'all might have. Mitch is here too and can speak to
The
it.
reason these are being offered is because they offer manufacturing and higher skilled jobs than warehouse and distribution. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Committee and other reports, Economic Development Committee meeting Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. Chairman Tom Audette.
Yes. So present was Councilman Huckabee and Councilwoman Love. It was a very good meeting. We talked about several different things. One of the things was the introduction of what we call Small Business Toolkit. The Small Business Toolkit is going to be a all-in-one site location kit that will go onto a website both on the county side and on the Chamber of Commerce side. And what it does is it's going to allow small businesses and entrepreneurs to look to see what they do in order to start a business, what are some of the ideas that they have from a market analysis information for the area they're looking at, what is the paperwork they have to do, et cetera, funding, where do they go for funding, et cetera. It's currently being put together, and it's going to be on our website. It's also going to be on the Chamber's website, and then we're also going to be partnering with SBDC in the COG too as we move forward with it. Secondly, we talked about what are the opportunities that in areas where we can improve to help out businesses to expand. And so you've got a mechanism where you have a small business toolkit for beginner companies. And then when your companies are existing, we're going to look to bring in additional information in support to other companies that are existing to expand and how we can do that. So again, there's a lot more to come, but we did a lot of ideation in that meeting, so I thought it was very good. We had a couple other reviews on how we want to approach economic development based on our strategic plan. I thought the readouts were very good. And lastly, we did a motion to direct staff to explore new economic development opportunities and investments in the area. So it was a very good meeting, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Audette. We did have another committee meeting of Finance and Operations Committee, Chairman Allison Love.
We met today at 5:45, President Councilman Audette and Atkins. We considered applications for service for the Planning Commission and recommend the reappointment of Tom Bott for a second term for the District 7 Planning Commission seat. Once again, the Bethel Fire Tax Board appointment was deferred to January, and we approved the minutes from the November the 21st Finance and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. We do not have any citizen concerns. Are there any council member new non-agenda comments before we move into executive session?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
So I want to talk about something that this council going forward needs to consider. When a council member is representing an area, you know, we eliminated a lot of our board seats. We eliminated those at-large seats, and we all have committees and boards that over time, I'm sure all of you have worked hard to put the person who you feel like is the best person, not for yourself, but for the community in those seats. So for the past two Finance and Operations Committee, my appointments have all been deferred so that the new person can make those appointments in January. And I just want to say that I've been on this council for 8 years, and I know better than anybody the people in the community and who wants to serve out of the goodness of their heart and who may have an ulterior motive. And when I got down to making these appointments, it was not without the input from those boards and committees or those entities who were asking for board members. So I just want to give an example of two that are a real problem. And if this council doesn't want to have someone appoint, I'm still coming to meetings, I'm still taking calls from all of my constituents, and I'm still attending and holding my board and committee meetings, and until January the 5th, I'm in this seat. So if this council sees a need to stop the appointment to boards and committees earlier than the end of a term, you need to talk about that so that you're not caught in a situation like I'm in, which carries over to a situation, in my case, for Bethel Volunteer Fire Department, where I have 2 board members, and they have a meeting in early January with the county manager, and the people who would be serving based on my input and what that fire department is trying to accomplish will not be included in the meeting with county management, which is a very important meeting. Right now, they are unable to meet as a tax board because we had a traumatic event, and one of those firemen was not sure that he was going to be able to serve, and he ultimately did resign from the board, and we had another person resign this past week. She didn't resign, but her term was up. So we were trying to fill those seats. And in another case, with Max Abilities, I had a person apply, and you might think it's a friend of mine, but again, I'll tell you, it's not a friend of mine. It's not anybody I've ever met, but 2 great candidates applied for 2 other boards, people that I didn't know, had not met. So I met with them, I talked to them, and I referred them to those entities, and those entities said this person would be a great candidate for this board, and those were also deferred. So the consequence of what you have determined is in the best interest of District 2. I just want you to know that you've made a mistake. And so instead of putting those dedicated people who want to serve and are the appropriate people to serve, we are now waiting for those appointments, and they will not be in those seats until at the earliest February of this coming year. So I am insulted, but I understand that you are also under some pressure from the next person coming into this seat. I do understand that, and I've been told that by multiple people who are under that pressure. So I'm just saying that this is not a presidential cabinet that we're putting together. These are boards and committees that fall under the current council member. And if you need to make a change to an ordinance so that this doesn't happen in the future, then you should do that. If you're not comfortable with a person who has served 8 years selecting people for boards. And we did receive a letter from the future councilman, and I'm going to share that letter tonight on my Facebook page, but I was accused of trying to put people on boards and commissions to subvert the community. And to me, that is way, way far from anything that I have ever intended to do as a representative of York County.
Mr. Roddy?
I want to piggyback off of, if I could, I received the same letter, same questions about appointing people, outgoing council members, appointing new committee members, board members, or what have you. Kind of puts you in mind, if, like you said, if we can't do this off of feelings, we can't do this off emotions. If this is going to be the rule, we need to make an ordinance that says outgoing council members can't appoint new board members, period. We see this on the national level. We see it at the state level. People appointing on their way out. We had magistrate judges being appointed. One that distinctly I remember when Wes Hayes was on his way out. He appointed a magistrate on his way out. He had lost the race. The seat was vacant. He got the appointment. There's no rule that says you can't appoint on your way out. And if we're going to limit people who are still actively sitting in a seat, we need to be across the board, because all of us may be faced with that one day, and it needs to be unilateral. It needs to be the same for everybody. And if it's the will of council to do this now, to say you can't appoint on your way out, it needs to be the same for me if I lose my race. It needs to be the same for Watts or Christie or whoever loses their race, that if you're in the lame duck situation, you don't get to do it. But they do it at the presidential level. They do it at the congressional level. So why would anything be different? But we're run by ordinances. So if we don't have an ordinance that says you can't, then we shouldn't personally want to get involved with it. And we should have been able to tell an incoming council member, we have no rules that say she can't appoint. And I just think, I agree with her. I received it and I talked to her. I said, you're still an active council member. You should have full authority to appoint who you want to appoint, because you're still that council member. And so if we're going to do this, let's look at changing the rules for everybody, because all of us are going to be faced with it one day, eventually. And it may be a vacant seat that needs to be filled. I don't care if it's been vacant for 6 months or a year. If it's vacant, and if someone needs to be appointed, let's appoint them. But on another note, I'll go back and say, it's been great serving with you. You made me tear up earlier. But nevertheless, we're going to miss you, and I'm sure you're going to come back and see us. But just want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody, because I don't think we have another meeting before then. So look forward to seeing everybody come back after the new year. And there'll be a new person sitting somewhere on this council, and we're going to support that person. We're going to do all we can to make sure that his community is taken care of just the same as we did for you. So good luck.
Thank you.
Do we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, couple of announcements. Some of you may not know, but WRHI is celebrating their 80th anniversary this month, which is pretty significant. I grew up in York County, and I remember listening to Robert Beatty when I was a kid on the radio, and still listen to it in the mornings when I'm at the Y. It's a great resource for us here in the community to get that local presence. Also, Clinton College, their president left recently, and Archenia Ingram was just appointed as the interim president. She's been with the college for 20 years and may end up being the next president. Saturday, you all probably heard that John Spratt, Congressman John Spratt, passed away. And I would consider John a friend, and he was a client as well. I started going to Washington in the 90s, and I'll say as busy as he was on the Budget Committee, the Armed Services Committee, there was not a time that I went to D.C. that he did not make time to come back to his office and meet with me. As busy, I may have to wait 5 or 10 minutes for him to get out of a committee meeting, but he came back and met with me and sat there in undivided attention to talk through health care, which most of the time that's what we were talking about. But anyway, what a statesman he was, and did a lot for the state of South Carolina, did a lot for York County as well. So he's definitely been missed and will be missed. Allison, so a lot of people don't know, but I've known Allison since we were in junior high school, a long time. And joining council, we have ended up on opposite sides of some issues, but we've been able to talk through those. And being on the opposite side was never intentional, and it was never personal, and wouldn't be. But what I hope for you is that there have been so many people that have served on council. Britt Blackwell last week, the governor was here on Thursday and nominated Britt to the South Carolina Department of Transportation Commission, nominated him. I don't know if he'll get it, obviously, but he was nominated by the governor. It's pretty prestigious. Rick Lee, I think Rick might be doing something in Washington sometime soon. Michael Johnson, Senator now, Brandon Guffey, and others that have served on council. So I hope you follow their lead and continue to do good things for York County.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I say real quick, congratulations to Northwestern for winning the state championship. It just
Hey,
totally
that's
slipped
good.
my mind.
I missed that one.
Slipped my
Yeah,
mind.
as a graduate,
Yeah, there you go.
been playing on it.
Real quick, and again, just for the public's need, I know you did mention that you didn't get any appointments, but we actually did approve 2 tonight, which was Cultural Heritage Commission and also Zoning Board of Appeals. So again, just wanted to share that with you. I know you had mentioned you didn't get any, so again, you got the 2. Couple other things. We, in our economic development meeting, we had emergency management come in, and what was really good about that is that we've seen challenges from the last storm that we had and how we need to get better. So as part of the strategic plan, they put together a roadmap in which they can start targeting concerns and areas of need. So I thought it was a good meeting. Again, want to share that also with the public. This last week, the governor went to Carowinds and did announce that he is requesting $2 million of funds for us to do a study, engineering study of Carowinds exit, which is huge. We've got roughly 40,000 vehicles going through there a day. The need is great, and the opportunity, once he sends it to the legislator, he feels that he'll get it approved, and we'll get that $2 million in order to get that engineering study done, but it's a big deal, and it's great for York County. The last thing, too, is I do want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, safe travels, and enjoy all your time with your family and friends. Thank you.
Okay, so, as Tom said, we were at Carowinds last week with the governor, and I was very happy to hear that they're starting a study on Carowinds Boulevard, which is greatly needed and really behind the time, considering the amount of traffic coming from Charlotte down to our area. And when they get to our area, they've got anywhere from 30, 45 minutes to an hour to get home once they hit that interchange. So that is something that I hope that we can continue to push that forward, and it be sooner than later. That would be my ask on that. Also, the fact that Carowinds is a very crucial and valuable entity in this community, it would give them, I think, it would be such a feather in our cap to provide to them a beautiful, wonderful interchange so that they can get more people in Carowinds than they currently do. Also, the time that I've had, actually, it's just been 2 years. Sometimes it seems a little longer, on council with Allison, who encouraged me to run, and I appreciate that. The fact that Tom helped with that encouragement. We've been a pretty solid little group there up in the north part of York County. We do have our challenges up there, and they're different than Tommy's area or you guys in the south, but we're working through it, and I do think that we will succeed in having a better community in the future, and particularly in my district, being that it has had no solid representation of just one council person. I don't know how many people know this, but there has not been one single council person representing that area. It's been split between three. Of course, when you have three opinions and three ideas of how an area should be run, sometimes that gets a little skewed. So I love working with my community. I love the fact that I was encouraged by Allison. I've learned just a tremendous amount from her, and I keep on learning from all of you guys, considering that I'm one of the newbies. I can still consider myself one of the newbies. And I do hope that you and your family have a beautiful and wonderful and very Merry Christmas, and that we have snow.
There you go. There you go.
Well, you know.
I'm done.
All right. Well, Chrissy didn't see me a little bit ago, but Allison, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And it is going to be odd not seeing you sitting down there. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And if anybody didn't hear, this is my wife's shirt. But she
We
better
saw you
wear it.
shining over there. We saw you shining. I do want to echo and send condolences and lift up the family of John Spratt. He was a model statesman, and he was the consummate gentleman. He's one of those folks that you could walk into a room and you didn't feel like he thought he had the biggest ego. You could talk to him, and he was very articulate in advocating for policy changes. And I think that's what our country really needs to be inspired to do, is to talk through issues, be inspired to talk through the specifics, not talk against each other behind the scenes or in front, take personal attacks. That's not what our community wants. That's not what helps us move the ball. It's advocating for positions and then recognizing that sometimes you don't always have full support for that. I do fully support us referring the issue of appointments to boards and commissions to committee. I think we ought to look at that at the first of the year, mostly because when the council, most folks don't know this, it hasn't been too long that we went to 4-year terms on the county council. And so when that happened, that gives an opportunity to have staggered terms on boards and commissions. And I do think that whether you like it or not, even though there is supposed to be a very strong line of demarcation between a council member and appointees to boards, you invariably get accused of putting folks on boards when they make decisions that don't agree with what you look like. So I think us taking a look at that and being more consistent, and maybe taking the opportunity to make sure that when folks get into a position to allow them to do that and line those things up might be helpful. It's certainly something worth thinking about and having at least a written policy on how we do it, so it'll take just take some of the drama out of having to figure out what to do. And I do appreciate the committee for working on those. I want to thank you again, Allison, for your service to the community and to the county. And I want to wish everyone at the county a very Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year. And we look forward to serving you next year. With that said, do we have a motion for executive session?
Yes, we have two: receipt of legal advice, legal litigation update, and also contractual matter, economic development consulting services.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move into executive session. We are out of executive session. No action was taken. Do we have any motions?
Yes, we do. Sorry. Motion to authorize contractual negotiations with Sustainable Consulting Solutions as a sole source provider for economic development consulting services as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.